In my last video, I spoke about unemployment, and I said that unemployment is not a very pleasant situation to be in. And the worst part is here in South Africa, we have 8.4 million people unemployed. And currently, according to the statistics, we have 16 point something people employed. So the ratio is 1:2. Now, what the heck is going on? Why are we in such a terrible situation here in South Africa? South Africa is not a poor country. South Africa is just a very poorly run country. And I think there's too little emphasis on really looking after its citizens. That's how I feel on this Heritage Day. I mean, if we were really concerned about the unemployed, government would have seriously considered finding ways to eliminate or at least minimize the unemployment. Now, we know unemployment is a global phenomenon. Things are changing right around the world. But in South Africa, I mean, can you imagine having 8.4 million people unemployed? And many of those people have families. They need to eat, they need to survive. And so, how are they supposed to survive? So, first of all, I think government is really neglecting its duty to look after its citizens, because if unemployment was really seen by government as a big issue and that it can affect even the stability in our country, then government would have considered starting infrastructural projects or projects that are labor intensive so that we can create work for people. You can't just rely on the private sector to create jobs. And we just acting as if unemployment is just a phenomenon that is supposed to be a natural state of affairs. And that's not the case. You know, there are people who are qualified, they completed their degrees, their diplomas. There are experienced people who are unemployed. There are young people who left school, those who completed matric who are unemployed. So where are they supposed to go? Right? So I think government really has to seriously consider that and stop fighting amongst each other for political points. I know there's a lot of political instability that is going on in our country, and there's always competition amongst political parties, but that is not what I'm interested in at this point. I'm just concerned that as a country that we have placed people in government and those people are not concerned about the man in the street, the ordinary citizen, the person who put them in that position to look after our country. So, after that, a bit of a vent, I want to say that besides government, who is the custodian and who is failing in its responsibility to help create jobs, there's another ugly monster that is raising its head. And that is that businesses are also taking advantage again of the unemployment situation. You find businesses nowadays hire and fire people as if it's uh, fashionable to do so. And then they also tend to hire people who are less qualified or inexperienced because they want to save on their salary or their wage bill. So now people are being treated like objects. People are being seen as, how much can you help me to raise my profits? And if you're going to cost me too much, even though I know that you have valuable skills and that you will help my company grow, I'm not going to employ you because you're going to cost too much. So that's the game that businesses are playing. Now, they are either playing that game intentionally because they know there's a large pool of unemployed people, so they can now pick and choose. Or in some cases, I would like to believe that people are doing it unintentionally because they don't understand how society works and they don't understand the whole concept of Ubuntu, where you have to look out for the next person and not just focus on your profits. Okay? Even in our critical areas like teaching and health, we have shortages. We don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough healthcare staff because there are budget constraints. Now, if you can compromise on education and on health, then it tells me that we are really screwed as a country, right? And no province can boast about having a better situation than the next because they are really just competing for the lowest denominator. You know, if there was a province that could tell me now that they have tried to minimize the number of unemployed people because they are really concerned about families not being affected negatively by the unemployment and that they want to see all the citizens in the province thriving, then I will say, yes, I'll take my hat off. But if it's just a matter of comparing yourself to how much worse the other provinces are, then I'm saying that you're also just playing a numbers game. And that's the bad thing because we are talking about the real people sitting behind those unemployment numbers. So that's the one thing I wanted to raise about businesses also taking advantage of the situation. Um, People are now having to work longer hours in some cases. And now you don't even have the right to say no because you are so scared that you're going to lose your job. And this I heard from at least two people that they must just, you know, accept the fact that the hours are longer and they have to work, whether it is working on a public holiday and then, of course, getting the double pay. But the point is, you have to work on a public holiday. You can't object to that because you know that the businesses will tell you that if you don't like the way the companies run, then you can take your bags and leave because they know there are so many unemployed people who will happily take over that job. Now, that kind of playing with people's emotions and playing with people's lives is something that I can't get used to. It just doesn't make sense, right? I know of a case where in the family where the person doesn't even know if he or she is going to be able to take leave at the end of the year because the company just decided that everybody must wait until they decide when people will be able to go on leave. Now, what nonsense is that? You know? So we can blame government as much as we would like to blame them, and rightly so. I think we must also start looking at those who are taking advantage of unemployment, those who are really exploiting the workers, and then also just pointing a finger at government and saying government is not doing this. We have corruption, we have all kinds of problems in government. And yes, we agree with you, but that doesn't give you permission to take advantage of our people, right? People have the right to good working conditions, they have the right to their leave. And what are you losing if you're telling people when they can take leave? Why must they wait for Christmas or very close to Christmas to hear whether they can get off or not? That is now just downright exploitation, and that shouldn't be allowed in our business places. But that is what's happening. That is what's happening. And that is a very sad situation. So we must begin to educate ourselves, about how the society operate and how we contribute often to the problems that we have in our country, and that we must stop just looking at business and at government, but here on the ground we're creating the same. We have the same exploitation. We also oppress people, and we also play games with people's lives. But we always want to have the focus on the political leaders. They are the problem, or big business, they are the problem, right? That is something that we have to talk about as well, because we often oppress ourselves and we often take advantage of people just because they are vulnerable.